My name is Alana Moon and this is my Cultural Plunge presentation. In this presentation, I will firstly talk about how identity and culture is formed and use the interview with Phyllis Robertson, an immigrant from Scotland, to provide both understanding and examples. I will then go on to explain how my own understanding of culture and identity will come to influence my approach to teaching. I have come to believe that we develop our culture and identity through the different groups of people we choose to surround ourselves with. We take certain components from different groups, which we like and/or can relate to, and mold them into our culture and identity. This belief falls in line with the findings of Sally Knipe, who discusses how the environment we place ourselves in impacts our identity, as well as the individuals making their own choices. In my belief, the different groups of people we surround ourselves with can be seen as the different environmental cues. The choosing of different components from the group looks at the other aspect of individuals consciously taking part in forming their own identity. This can be seen with Phyllis, the lady I interviewed, who talked about how being surrounded by immigrants and being an immigrant herself had influenced her being very money conscious. She was surrounded by poor immigrants in the hostel she lived in first coming to Australia. That acted as environmental cues. Her choice to remain money conscious as she gained more wealth was one she made on her own account. Another way in which culture is both developed and influenced is through the inclusion of dominant culture and the exclusion of cultures that are a minority. This concerns migrants, those especially who sometimes feel when moving to a new country they should rid of their heritage in order to adapt to the new country they live in. They do this by taking on common beliefs, ideals, and/or customs in order to feel a connection with both the native people and the new country which they have come to live in. This view is also shared by Bruce Burnett, who in his book talks about immigrants having to modify themselves in order to fit a singular way of life. This one way to go about life refers to the dominant culture I previously talked about that immigrants try to be a part of. Phyllis talked about how her immigration experience is still a part of her identity she has today, in terms of changing things like what she would have to eat, the music she would listen to, and the way she would dress in order to adapt to the Australian culture. One other alternative way we can create our own culture and identity is through the different extracurricular activities we can take part in. The different clubs, the different teams we're all enjoying being a part of also have ideals and beliefs we take on in our culture and in our identity, such as being a part of a netball team taught Phyllis the importance of teamwork and fairness. They became a part of her culture and identity because she learned them through playing something she loved, which was netball. The importance of taking part in the school community and the positive effects it can have on your own identity was discussed by Graham and Harvard in their journal. They focused on how being a part of things in the school community, such as school sporting teams, helped children develop skills and traits outside of the classroom. I have always understood that each child is so different in their approach to learning. However, I think I will struggle to completely emphasize with a learning culture and identity so different to my own. My struggle to understand a student's learning culture and identity might also prevent me from providing the best assistance I can as a teacher later on in life. Throughout my schooling years, my parents have always played a significant part in my learning. Not only were they able to help me whenever I asked them, they also never said no to me when I needed assistance. My parents always encouraged me and supported me in doing my best at school, so I could assist myself in getting a good job in the future and be proud of my own achievements. I am aware that not every student has this support from their parents. However, I was unaware of just how influential parents can be on how students are performing at school. In the journal Family Business Strategy, it discusses how a parent's identity and culture can influence how successful a child is in their education. It discusses things like a parent having a positive attitude to work and showing interest in their child's studies can have a significant effect on their academic performance and attitude towards schooling. This was also demonstrated for Phyllis's schooling experience, as her parents did not take an interest in her learning or supported her appropriately. In the later years of her education, she then took on this identity and culture, leading her to receive marks she wasn't happy with from her lack of dedication to schooling. Another component of my education that I found was instrumental to my academic performance was the teacher I had. Especially in my later years of schooling, I had found that the teacher would significantly influence my motivation to do well. In Year 12, I had a teacher who would say negative comments on my work when I didn't perform well, instead of trying to improve my performance. In comparison to another teacher I had, who always encouraged us and took the time in class to go over things we had gotten wrong. This has brought to my attention that the way in which teachers go about correcting what students don't understand is so important. In a journal by Glenda Kane, she talks about the importance of communication in having a positive effect on a child's academic performance. She talked about when students are getting work wrong, we should encourage and help them to do better rather than put them down. In the interview, Phyllis talked about how in one of her classes she always did so well because she had this one teacher who motivated her and made her want to work hard. She stated that her positive energy towards learning radiated onto the students. From the interview I had with Phyllis, I was able to identify a factor that had a negative influence on her and many other students' education-based culture and identity. This was bullying. Within Phyllis's early years of schooling, she told me she was bullied a lot for having short hair and being told she looked like a boy. As a result of this bullying, she would skip school sometimes and miss out on learning in order to stay away from the bullies. A study was completed looking at the mutual long-term effects of school bullying and found that bullying led not only to a decreased academic performance, but also a decreased attendance at school, showing school had become a negative place for bullied children, as well as a change of both cultural and identity in terms of school. As I've never been bullied throughout my schooling, I may find it hard not only to help a bullied child and bring them to see school in a more positive manner, I need to learn how to appropriately assist bullied children, as well as give them the motivation to improve their academic performance.